Joining us right now from Bitcoin 2025 is Swan Bitcoin CIO Ben Werkman, and obviously the world's largest cryptocurrency is a major focus at this event, and many people I spoke with that are attending are pointing to Bitcoin's new all-time high reached just last week, under $112,000, as risk sentiment continued to improve following last month's tariff-induced sell-off. So what do you think is contributing to Bitcoin hitting these new all-time highs? What are the factors at play?
I think Bitcoin became really de-risked in the market recently. So prior to this year, you really still had a lot of regulatory headwinds ahead of you. People weren't sure how the administration was going to embrace Bitcoin. And when we came out with a very pro-administration and then we started getting movement in the SEC, you started seeing Bitcoin getting de-risked as a commodity in the market. And when that happened, it opened up the doors for corporations to really embrace this as an asset class that they could build into their own balance sheets. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of adoption. You're seeing a lot of new capital flow in. You've seen a lot of the announcements at this event. So it's been really great.
Why do you think companies are betting big on Bitcoin?
I think they're recognizing the problems that are out there with the US dollar, particularly after COVID, when you saw the monetary debasement and all the inflation that was entering the markets. Corporations figured out that they needed a way to protect themselves. And in order to do that, they needed to find an asset that they could put on the balance sheet, capitalize themselves around, that had a truly fixed supply, where supply is completely inelastic to the demand. And once they recognized that Bitcoin is that perfect instrument that they can capitalize their business on, they decided that they could take that step to protect the value they've created by building good businesses all along the way. And now they're protecting the value they've created, which is driving new value to shareholders. And shareholders are starting to become very active in ensuring that the management is focused on creating value from all aspects of the business, not just the P&L.
Now, it's been a slower than usual rally for Bitcoin, sparked by institutional ownership of the cryptocurrency and corporate adoption of it, as we just discussed. In fact, according to Bitcoin treasuries, the number of Bitcoin held by public companies has grown more than 30%. So what do you think it will take to keep that momentum going? Is it more companies putting Bitcoin on their corporate balance sheets? Is it more positive headlines tied to trade tension? Is it a mix of the two? What's at play there?
I think it's a mix of a lot of those factors. I mean, corporations continuing to adopt makes it more easy for the rest of the corporations to follow suit. A lot of them need a playbook that's already been proven out in the market, so they understand how to do all the things with Bitcoin. So custody, for example, is a big issue that a lot of corporations, a lot of people in the boardroom really have to juggle with as they're evaluating Bitcoin as a core asset to themselves. But as that becomes more clear to them, they'll quickly be able to get comfortable with Bitcoin as an asset and continue that adoption trend. But I think we're going to see it through countries and other government organizations as well. You saw the announcement with New York promoting Bitbonds, and I think that's a massive step because when someone goes first, it creates the playbook for the rest of these cities and states to follow, and Bitbonds are going to be a very powerful tool to drive adoption as well. So you're going to see a confluence of factors that bring Bitcoin to the mainstream and make it a really easy yes for companies and executives to take on.
So are you optimistic that Bitcoin will surpass that new all-time high, just under $112,000? Fundstrat's Tom Lee, he joined CNBC a couple of months ago, and he said that he thinks Bitcoin could hit $150,000 this year. Do you think that's feasible? What's your prediction?
I do. Yeah, I think it's going to get into the high 100s for sure. I would not be surprised to see it in the 225 to 250 range at some point. What you're starting to see is this really large structural bid coming in underneath it. And a lot of these corporations that are buying it, they're long-only buyers. They're not traders of Bitcoin. So they're using it truly as an asset to capitalize on the balance sheet. And when they do that, they're not intending to sell it. So you're seeing all this capital flowing into the markets and into these companies, and that's taking Bitcoin off the market. So when that float starts to shrink, but that buying pressure continues to increase, you can see some really explosive things happen in the price of Bitcoin, and that comes back to that inelastic supply to demand. It doesn't matter how much demand there is, there's no more Bitcoin coming to the market for them to buy.
Now, Bitcoin started this rally, it crossed that milestone $100,000 level immediately following the U.S. presidential election back in November. And since then, Donald Trump, once he took office, started taking all these actions to help promote crypto and, as he says, make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. We heard from J.D. Vance, the vice president, at this crypto conference. What do you think all these things are doing for Bitcoin, whether it's price or whether it's adoption. What do you think all these actions by the White House and Congress really are doing to help shape Bitcoin and adoption here in the U.S.?
Well, I think in the U.S. it's a really big step because it takes that risk out of the way for anybody that's looking to adopt it. When you've got the nation talking about building their strategic reserve around Bitcoin, that opens it up to everybody to start considering it. So there's never been a better risk-adjusted time for corporations or for states to start evaluating Bitcoin as part of their long-term strategic plans. But even potentially bigger than that, when you've got the company or the country that's got the reserve asset of the world right now, and they start embracing Bitcoin as this truly decentralized asset, that makes it safer for all the other countries in the world to follow suit. Because if they're showing the steps to say, maybe we want this as a strategic part of our own nation, if you're a smaller country that doesn't have your own currency that you're able to print, you need to start thinking about being ahead of the curve instead of following behind the biggest country doing it.
I want to take a look back at last month's tariff-induced sell-off. It was a wild ride for both crypto and stocks, but Bitcoin was pretty resilient amid that wild ride we saw for major indices following all those headlines. How do you explain that? And I mean, that's something we typically see, investors typically see with crypto, not so much with stocks. So what do you think was going on there?
I think you really saw Bitcoin coming into the market as that true store of value asset. You started to see the market embrace it. I mean, just the narrative that was getting pushed out, even through the White House itself, about Bitcoin being a version of digital gold, right? It's a more liquid version of gold. That really resonated in the market. So when they started seeing all these tariffs coming out and they started getting worried about the currencies and about the inflation impacts of all of those tariffs, you start to see a flight to safety. People are looking for the risk-off assets that they can move into. And I think that was really the first moment where people could really observe Bitcoin's price action and see that it was starting to come of age, and it's now ready to take its stage as that true store of value and that true risk-off asset that so many of us have been pushing for so long now.
So this Bitcoin conference is wrapping up. We're on the last day of Bitcoin 2025, and you've been here the entire time. So I'm curious to hear, what have some of the main topics been here at this conference? What has been top of mind as you engaged with people here?
For me, it's been corporate adoption. Those have been the conversations I've been hearing in the halls. And this is one of the first conferences I've come to. I haven't been to this conference before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But the energy levels have been incredibly high. And you're meeting executives from a lot of corporations that are thinking about putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. You're meeting with the institutional traders that are trading around these assets. You're meeting with the hedge funds that are the convertible arbitrage traders. I mean, they're all finally here in the same room having the conversations together. And I think that's really huge for shaping what the future of corporate adoption is going to look like. And you're seeing the interest in the halls, both from the retail investing community, who's seen the power of volatility in equities, but also for the companies to see what it's like to reignite an investor base and get them to really come on board and be that digital transformation of investor relations for your company. So there's a lot of factors coming together here at this conference, and it can't make you anything but optimistic for the future of Bitcoin.
So I take it you're very happy you attended this conference this year.
I'm very happy, yes. It's an exhausting conference because everybody's on and everybody's talking at a highly intellectual level here. So you've got to be on your A game throughout the entire conference, but there's no better place to be in Bitcoin right now.
Absolutely. Ben Werkman, Swan, Bitcoin's new CIO. Thank you very much for joining us here at Bitcoin 2025.
Thank you for having me.